It's great to be here with you all. We're so excited to have you.
What happens when one of hip-hop's most easygoing legends finally loses his cool on live TV? Today, we're breaking down the moment Snoop Dogg walked off today with Jenna and Friends after an interview spiraled completely out of control. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe and leave a comment sharing what you think really happened. The interview started off smoothly. Snoop walked onto the set with his trademark relaxed energy, greeting Jenna and the co-hosts with handshakes and smiles. The audience was hyped, phones out recording everything, and it looked like it was going to be a fun, light-hearted morning show appearance. Snoop has done hundreds of interviews over his decades-long career, so nobody expected what came next. Jenna opened with the usual pleasantries, thanking Snoop for joining them and highlighting his latest projects. He discussed new business ventures and upcoming music. At first, the conversation flowed naturally with Snoop joking and making everyone laugh. He spoke about his family, his grandkids, and building generational wealth. Classic Snooper, keeping it real but light-hearted. Then, Jenna shifted topics. She brought up a recent controversy comment Snoop made on a podcast about hip-hop and how newer artists approach the game. Snoop has always shared his honest opinions, but the way Jenna framed the question changed the mood immediately. She asked if he thought he was being too critical of younger artists, mentioning that some people online considered him out of touch. The question felt more like an accusation than a genuine inquiry. Snoop's relaxed smile tightened slightly. He took a breath and calmly explained that he wasn't against younger artists. He was pointing out that the culture has changed and not all change is positive. Jenna nodded but pressed further, naming specific artists who allegedly reacted negatively to his podcast comments. She asked if he felt he owed them an apology. Tension started rising. Snoop leaned back, carefully choosing his words. He said he didn't owe anyone an apology for speaking honestly, and if people were offended, that was their problem, not his. One host tried to lighten the mood with a joke about generational differences, but Jenna kept pressing. She asked if he understood why younger artists might feel disrespected by a legend criticizing their work publicly. The word disrespected was emphasized, and Snoop's demeanor changed immediately. He sat up, tone hardening. He reminded Jenna he'd been in the game before most of these artists were born and that respect works both ways. He said he always supported people who put in real work but wouldn't pretend everything released today was good just because it's popular. Today's culture is too soft, too sensitive, and everybody wants praise without effort, he said. Jenna argued that maybe the issue isn't artists being too sensitive, but older figures like Snoop not understanding how different the industry is now. She brought up social media pressures, mental health, and the effect public criticism can have on younger artists. She asked if he'd consider that his words carry weight and that maybe he should be more careful. The audience fell silent. A cheerful morning interview had turned into a tense debate. Snoop's jaw tightened. He reminded Jenna that he's been using his platform for over 30 years to uplift his community, support young talent, and create opportunities for people like him. He said he wouldn't be lectured about responsibility by someone who didn't understand his background. Jenna countered, saying that understanding culture doesn't excuse tearing others down, and asked if he cared that some artists publicly lost respect for him. Snoop stared for a long moment. Finally, his voice cold and deliberate. He said, "Respect is earned, not demanded." If people withdrew it over an honest opinion, they never really respected him. Another co-host tried to change the topic to his business ventures, but Jenna continued, asking if his attitude contributed to the divide between older and younger hip-hop artists. That was the breaking point. Snoop laughed, but without humor. He told her she clearly hadn't done her research because he's worked with, mentored, and promoted countless younger artists. He gave specific projects and examples, emphasizing that he supports talent and authenticity, not clout chasers or industry plants. Jenna said calling people industry plants was divisive and argued that multiple paths to success exist. Snoop's expression went cold. He asked Jenna how long she'd really been involved in hip-hop, not just as a journalist, but understanding the culture firsthand. Jenna hesitated, explaining that a journalist doesn't need to live a culture to recognize problematic behavior. Snoop countered, noting she seemed comfortable questioning him in ways she might not challenge pop or rock stars, implying bias. The debate escalated. Jenna pushed accountability and evolution. And Snoop emphasized authenticity and earned respect. Costs looked unsure, the audience still recording. Jenna suggested Snoop resisted change to protect his relevance. Snoop's expression showed disbelief. Leaning forward, he said he'd never had anyone question his relevance directly and that it disrespected everything he'd built. He highlighted his record sales, business ventures, and mainstream impact, all while staying true to himself. Jenna clarified she didn't mean he was obsolete, but argued that constant criticism of younger artists could appear insecure. Snoop laughed again, sharp and humorless, saying she was assuming his motives instead of listening. He accused her of having an agenda to create a viral moment, not a real conversation. A co-host suggested moving on, but Jenna insisted, saying defensiveness might show a truth he didn't want to face. Snoop replied that defending self-respect isn't defensiveness. He expected dialogue, not an ambush. Jenna said these were legitimate questions. Snoop said challenge and disrespect aren't the same, and her approach was more about controversy than journalism. He stood deliberately, stating he'd been accountable to family, community, fans, and himself, but wouldn't let someone question his integrity based on limited understanding. Jenna stood too, claiming hip-hop is universal and belongs to anyone who loves it. Snoop replied that loving something isn't the same as understanding it or it comes from lived experience. Hip-hop originated from specific struggles and not everyone can redefine it for comfort. They debated evolution versus preservation. Snoop argued growth shouldn't dilute core principles. Costs suggested a break. Jenna asked if he regretted his comments about younger artists. Snoop said no. Everything he said was true and honest. He wasn't wrong. Jenna asked if public criticism was the right approach, suggesting statements might generate headlines more than help the culture. Snoop said he's a person, not a brand, and would speak his mind. He criticized the expectation to sanitize opinions to avoid offense. Jenna reminded him that legends are judged by how they treat the next generation, urging him to be a bridge, not a barrier. Snoop smiled coldly, saying he didn't need advice from someone who misunderstood him. He thanked co-hosts, addressed Jenna one last time, and said he recognized the agenda from the start and would no longer participate. Jenna urged him to stay, but Snoop said he defended his views for decades and didn't need to prove himself now. He said real fans would understand and those who didn't weren't his fans anyway. Jenna said walking off could appear weak. Snoop replied that legends know which battles matter. He apologized to the crew and audience, acknowledging their time and hoping they respected his choice. Then he walked off. The cameras caught it all. The studio was stunned. Jenna tried to recover, implying it was Snoop's fault. Clips went online immediately, dividing opinion. Some praised him for standing his ground. Others criticized him for not handling questions. Hip-hop artists took sides. Veterans supported him. Younger artists were split. Know your worth. The phrase he left with became a rallying cry. So, what do you think? Was Snoop right to walk off, or should he have stayed and debated? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more breakdowns like this.